Madagascar is often dramatically labeled the eighth continent, a phrase that appears in documentaries, travel books, and online videos. But what does that claim actually mean when examined through the lens of modern science, geology, biology, and plate tectonics? To answer that, we have to move beyond catchy titles and step into a story that stretches back more than 180 million years to a time when today's continents were welded together into a single supercontinent called Gondwana. Madagascar's uniqueness does not come from being a continent in the strict scientific sense, because by formal geological definitions, continents are large continuous masses of continental crust with broad continental shelves, distinct tectonic histories, and specific criteria agreed upon by the scientific community. And Madagascar does not fully meet those standards. However, its story begins when Gondwana began to fracture during the Jurassic period. Around 180 million years ago, Africa, Antarctica, Australia, India, South America, and Madagascar were all connected, sharing ecosystems, rivers, and ancient life forms. As tectonic forces slowly pulled Gondwana apart, Madagascar first separated from Africa roughly 160 million years ago, drifting eastward like a geological time capsule. Later, around 88 million years ago, Madagascar split from the Indian subcontinent, becoming an isolated island in the Indian Ocean, where it has remained ever since. This double separation is crucial because it meant that Madagascar was cut off from both Africa and India long before most modern mammals evolved, setting the stage for one of the most extraordinary evolutionary experiments on Earth. Over millions of years, plants and animals that happened to be on the island evolved in isolation, adapting to unique environments without competition from later arriving species found elsewhere. This is why scientists often emphasize that Madagascar is not a continent, but it behaves biologically like one. Roughly 90% of its wildlife is endemic, meaning it exists nowhere else on Earth. Lemurs are the most famous example, a group of primates that evolved into dozens of species on Madagascar, while monkeys and apes evolved elsewhere. The same pattern appears in reptiles, amphibians, plants, and even insects, creating ecosystems so distinct that biologists sometimes compare the island's biodiversity to that of an entire continent rather than a single country-sized landmass. From a geological perspective, Madagascar is made almost entirely of continental crust rather than volcanic oceanic crust, which already sets it apart from typical islands like Hawaii or Iceland. Its rocks include ancient Precambrian formations more than 2.5 billion years old, similar in age and composition to rocks found in Africa and India, reinforcing the idea that Madagascar is a fragment of a much larger continental system. Some scientists describe it as a microcontinent or continental island, a term also applied to places like Zealandia, the mostly submerged landmass associated with New Zealand. In fact, when people call Madagascar the eighth continent, they are often borrowing language used in discussions about Zealandia, which geologists formally recognize as a submerged continent because it meets more of the required criteria, including size, crustal thickness, and clear boundaries. Madagascar, while massive for an island, is still significantly smaller than recognized continents and lacks the extensive continental shelf typically associated with them. Yet size alone does not explain why the eighth continent label persists. The phrase survives because it captures a deeper truth about Madagascar's evolutionary independence. When early European naturalists arrived, they were stunned by how unfamiliar the flora and fauna seemed, even compared to mainland Africa. Baobab trees towered over landscapes like living sculptures. Chameleons displayed colors and behaviors unseen elsewhere, and predators followed evolutionary paths unlike lions or wolves. Modern genetic research confirms that many of these species diverged from their closest relatives tens of millions of years ago, supporting the idea that Madagascar followed its own evolutionary trajectory for an exceptionally long time. Climate also played a major role in shaping this uniqueness. Madagascar contains rainforests, dry deciduous forests, spiny deserts, highland plateaus, and mangrove-lined coasts, all packed into a single island. These varied environments created natural laboratories for evolution, where species adapted rapidly to local conditions. Some experts argue that if continents were classified purely by biological distinctiveness rather than geological criteria, Madagascar would easily qualify as continent-like. Others caution that stretching scientific definitions for dramatic effect risks confusing viewers about how continents are actually defined. This debate highlights an important distinction between scientific accuracy and poetic description. Calling Madagascar the eighth continent is not technically correct in geology textbooks, but it is a powerful metaphor that reflects how profoundly different the island is from anywhere else on Earth. Understanding this nuance is essential, especially in an age when environmental pressures are threatening Madagascar's ecosystems at alarming rates. Deforestation, illegal logging, mining, and climate change have placed many endemic species at risk, and scientists warn that losing Madagascar's biodiversity would mean erasing evolutionary history that cannot be replaced. Conservationists often use the eighth continent framing strategically because it helps the public grasp the global importance of protecting an island that might otherwise be overlooked. In the end, the real story is not about whether Madagascar deserves an extra number on a list of continents, but about recognizing how deep time, plate tectonics, and isolation combined to create one of the most biologically rich and scientifically valuable places on the planet. Madagascar stands as a reminder that the boundaries we draw on maps are far less important than the ancient processes that shape life itself, and that protecting such a place is not just a regional concern, but a responsibility shared by the entire world. Something worth remembering the next time we hear the phrase, the eighth continent, used to describe this remarkable island.